Oh my god, your boots are incredible.
Oh, really?
Wow. I wonder why you look so tall today.
I like a chunky boot because they're so comfortable and you can still tower over people.
Is that what they call sensible heels?
These are the types of heels.
Can you put them up so we can see them?
Oh my god, okay.
Be as graceful as you.
I don't know.
Tell me those boots are not amazing.
I don't know how graceful I looked on that camera. So.
We'll cut.
Oh my god.
But for the purposes of my audience,
yes.
Could you tell them who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name's Lara Fraser. I'm a DJ, radio host, and producer.
And so, yeah, welcome back to another episode of Devoted Creatives. This is episode 6. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I never really know what people want to know yet because obviously the podcast is still quite new.
Yeah.
But you're one of my favourite people and you do amazing work. And so I thought, I don't know much about your story, how you got started, how you moved to England. So let's go back to the start, I guess. What got you into music?
Can I just say before we go into that, it's funny because I'm usually interviewing you and this is like a bit of a vice versa. This is payback for a bit of background to any listeners or watchers. Viewers? Watchers? Viewers.
Both.
Okay, there we go. My English is doing great. John has come on mine and my co-host Laura Pradelska's radio show, podcast, many a times. And so the roles have been reversed now.
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
So yeah, how did you get started in music?
Do you know what? I fell into music and I have a very odd story. I wasn't on this side of media or anything at all. When I moved to London, I was working in PR.
Okay.
So I started off being a writer and then I kind of moved into the PR scene. And actually, even before that, I had an internship at Nickelodeon. Actually.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So
how did that come about?
So, as part of my degree in Australia, I needed an internship overseas within the arts. I did something called International Creative Arts. Okay. So I don't think it even...
Sounds creative.
I don't think
Is that like doing an art degree?
Kind of. It's a very odd combination of business and arts, and I don't think it exists anymore. I think it kind of went on for...
You closed the whole program down.
I shut the program down. No, I actually... I didn't finish my degree for many years because towards the end, I did the internship over in Nickelodeon and did my international part of it in London, and I didn't make it back for the rest of for many years. And then my dad was like, Lara, if you do not get back and finish your degree, it's all over. So I scurried home and finished my degree, and then as soon as I could, moved back over to London. But to go back to what you were saying, after doing all of that, I came back to London, and me and my now co-host Laura Pradelska, who's one of my best friends, went to an interview. Now, she was being interviewed by Hoxton Radio, and she, for a little bit of background, she's an actress. She was on Game of Thrones, and they were doing an interview around that, and I came and I watched it, and I was like, Lau, we could do a show like this.
We could do this.
Yeah, I was like, we could do this. And I was like, should we pitch a show? And because my background was in writing, I wrote out this whole proposal that was like, oh, we're going to talk about this and do this and blah, 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 blah.
Amazing.
Went in and gave this proposal and they were like, well, we already have a show a bit like that, but would you like to do a tech show? Now,
this is starting to make sense now.
Now, Laura and I, at that time, were the least technical people in this entire world. I remember Lau used to say the internet, and I just had no idea how to even switch everything on. And it was probably one of the most overwhelming experiences. This radio show didn't have any sound engineers anything on it. So we really were thrown into the deep end on our first day, and they said, here's the desk, do your show. And
like,
neither...
No sound engineering background.
No, and I mean, I had studied presenting, and Lau was obviously an actress, so that side of it, we were like, yeah, we got this down.
Yeah.
But radio is very different, especially if it's live radio. I'm not joking. Me and Laura, we were on the microphones and we have never sweat so much. Our tops were like this. It was drenched. I think I turned the whole station off twice. Our levels were crazy. And we had to really rally ourselves to go back every single week.
Yeah.
Because we were terrible at it. And we just were for the first, month or two of doing it, because you can't just be great at it. You can't. You have to learn it. It's a craft.
So I got two questions with that.
Yeah.
Why did you go back if it was terrifying? If you were like, oh my God, we're completely screwing this up. What made you go back?
We wanted to be good at it. I loved the idea of it, and I really enjoyed, parts and elements of it that were really scary parts, but I think anything that is good and you really, really want to obtain is hard.
Yeah.
You've
got to be willing to work at it.
You've got to be willing to work at it. And we would go after the show and we would go straight to the pub and have like 3 drinks to drown our memories of how embarrassing we were.
Yeah. Have you listened to any of those shows back yet?
I should, because it would actually be
I want to
hilarious.
listen to them now.
Yeah, I mean, guys, don't go searching for them.
What's the show called?
The Weekly Update.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was very witty.
It's a great name.
Yeah, The Weekly Update. But we did a disclaimer before. We said it's tech for non-tech people.
Fair.
So how we kind of made the show feasible for us was, okay, let's find all the things we don't know and find ways in which we're able to understand them.
And then bring in guests who know about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we didn't really do guests yet because there's stages of doing things. We really had to understand how to get in from the song to the speaking, and try and do underlays and this and that, and there really wasn't much guidance or help there. So it was like you just go in and test. And I remember we'd print our scripts out and I'd go, "Hello, Lara. How are you today? It's lovely weather outside." And
oh my God.
And also, what I do have to say is coming into any type of new career path when you're older, and this was a fair few years ago now, but I think a lot of people by their mid-20s are setting into their career path.
Yeah,
And
they think they know who they are.
Yeah, well, they're also kind of halfway through their jobs, halfway through the trajectory of their jobs and that sort of stuff, or at least have some experience in it. And to change kind of around that stage into something that you know nothing about is very scary. But it was probably the best thing I ever did, because from there, I remember we were booked to DJ for the launch of a fashion week.
Yeah.
And neither Laura or I were DJs yet. And God, I can't even remember the details of it, but
how did it come about if you weren't DJs?
A lot of people assume that people that host radio shows are DJs, because most of them are. And we thought we were being booked to host. And then I got an email through with the specs of the CDJs that they were using. And I was like, "Lau, I think they think we're DJing." Or it was something like that. And we were like, "Do you know what? We're going to try it."
Yeah.
And this was something you and me were discussing before about just trying everything. Everyone else that I spoke to were like, "You girls are mental. How are you just going to try DJing for one of the biggest opening parties in London, really? And that's going to be your first set and you've got 2 days to prepare."
Yeah.
So we went to a DJ school.
Oh, for real? I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, there's huge DJ schools. There's DJ diplomas. I think what a lot of people don't realize, and we certainly didn't realize at this point, DJing is a real skill. And there are ways to get through sets without beat matching, without, but even so, to choose the right music.
To read a room.
To be able to dip out of something when it's not going well, but also to keep the energy levels at a certain height. If you're dipping between genres. Like, so house
completely
is...
ruins the vibe.
Yeah. So just a bit of background in like layman's terms. BPMs, which are beats per minute, will determine really the genre space that you're in. So house will be around 120 BPM, anywhere from actually 110 to 140, depending on what type of house it is. And, you know, something like hip hop and R&B might be 80, 90.
Yeah, it's like almost half that sometimes.
Yeah. So if you're like, okay, let me even play commercial house like Calvin Harris, and then you think, okay, let me dip into another commercial song, which is a hip-hop R&B song, it can be done, but you've got to make that transition right, so that it doesn't feel like it's going like, so you might do an echo that gives it space where it goes duh, 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 and start on something really hard so that it can be flicked up, and that's how you will get that to work.
Gives it flow.
Yeah, but to get to that stage of understanding that, and physically and habitually your hands being able to do that, because that's another thing. You might mentally know, okay...
Yeah, you know music.
Yeah, or you might mentally even know, okay, maybe I want to do this style of transition. You've got to train your hands to be able to get to the certain spaces that it needs to quick enough, you know. So it's another thing that takes a lot of time. But we did that, and our second DJ set we booked was, I think, Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You just nothing by halves.
No, I mean...
Straight in the deep end.
Yeah, I have to say, we still didn't really know what we were doing. And what we did back then, and it's still kind of a motto now, is as a DJ, you're being booked to make a party great.
Yeah.
So whatever goes wrong, and everything will go wrong in one way or another, whether you're skilled or not.
Yeah, that camera's probably not rolling.
Yeah, that's fine. And that happens with everything. You know, a chord might not be working. You might think that the mid thing is on lock, and your hip pushes it so that the whole left CDJ goes off. You know, whatever it is, you have to be able to bring yourself back from it, and you have to keep the energy up for the party. So if all the power shuts off, you know, you're getting everyone up to do shots.
You get on the mic.
Yeah, you get on the mic, you do whatever it is, but you can't be rattled by it. And you also, if you do make a mistake, don't show it in your face, because people don't know.
Yeah, most of the time.
Like, I mean, generally, like if you're in a party environment where you're like, oh, okay, I didn't do that mix exactly the way that I thought I would do it, and you can really hear it in your head. Most people are having fun with their friends. Yeah. And unless it's something really, really obvious, it's going to be just fine. But if it's all over your face, people are going to be like, oh, okay.
So what was the process for you learning? Like, what was it like for you to learn how to play music?
Terribly hard. Yeah. I think what it was for me is that I conceptually had to understand what DJing actually was, because it wasn't something that I ever even kind of followed. I wasn't like the person that was like, okay, let me follow certain DJs and stuff. I loved music, but I didn't follow DJs' careers and stuff, not until I started actually getting into it for me. So I think a lot of people come at the career from different avenues. I came from it from being established in media side of things, so getting bookings and stuff were easy for me, but I had to build that skill level to keep everything up. Whilst a lot of people will have the skill level, but then
they don't have the other side.
They don't have the other side, but then on top of not just having the bookings, there's a real skill in keeping everyone happy and being an entertainer, because you can be the best DJ in the world, but you know, if you're only playing trance and people on the dance floor don't want to hear it, you have to change it. And there's certain people that won't do that.
Self-indulgent DJs are the worst.
Yeah.
They're not looking at the room at all. They're just playing for themselves.
They're playing for themselves, and there's a certain space for it. You can do a really amazing live set on radio for that, where you know that radio station is catered for that, you know. And you could probably go into production and certain things, but when it's a live room, you have to cater to that room, because that's what you're being booked for. And there's no other way around it, because you can clear a dance floor in about 5 seconds.
Have you done that before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. No, but like, I mean, I have to...
Do you remember what song it was?
I don't know. It just wasn't right for the place. I think you can go into things with the mentality of, I know what people are going to want to hear. And you can have exactly the same set one night to another, and it can bang and the place can go off. And then you can play another night and people will be like, what is going on here? So, you know, you have to read a room. And it's as simple as that. I just got back from Berlin, and, you know, you would think Berlin, it's going to be really house
like
and
hardcore
trance.
House, electro.
No, but the party that we were playing at was a mixture of Tulum and Israel.
Okay, interesting.
In Berlin.
Sick.
So it was a really interesting combination of disco, and then it was like Israeli songs, and with a little bit of, you know, house, but it wasn't trance house or anything like that. And they just wanted really high energy songs that they knew, that they could dance to, that were really uplifting, rather than anything that was too like bass heavy or that would take them into a darker space, because it wasn't that. It was, you know, fire breathers everywhere. We had belly dancers.
Amazing.
It was incredible, but it's not what you would think when you hear a place. So, yeah.
Was that your first time in Berlin as well?
Second time in Berlin. I was saying before, I haven't been since I was like 19.
Okay. Very different experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's changed loads since then, but my memory of it was backpacking through there.
Fair.
And I think we were staying in horrible hostels, and I didn't have the best time then. Nothing to do with the city, more to do with the fact that we were exhausted and traveling for 6 months and had no more clean clothes.
So what I wanted to ask you is, and maybe this is, you've seen it or perceived it, I think a lot of people see pretty people DJing and think they're not really doing it. Have you experienced that, or is that just something I've assumed?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I mean, like, listen, you can play a mix somewhere, but if you don't even know how to DJ, you can't even get out of it or into it, or, you know, when people say that, I say, okay, you do it.
Yeah.
You know,
people think it's just playing music.
Yeah,
there's more to it.
I think there's a lot of people that think you're playing a Spotify playlist, or, you know, I had this really upset man in one of my sets that I wouldn't play a specific Greek music song that was so far left, and he's like, just put it on, and I'm going, okay, I don't think you quite understand that I can't. Where do you want me to get the song from? And he goes, put your phone on, and I was like, where? How? You know, there's all of that. And listen, there's all different types of DJs out there with many different ways of putting together their sets and everything. But what I think people don't often understand is that everything is prepared before. You know?
I mean, my mum's a DJ, so even when she comes down to London sometimes and she's got a set back home, she'll find a space she can go and practice in.
Oh my god, yeah. Like, every time my mum like laughs at me, because when she stays with me and I get booked at a new place and I'm stressing about getting the right music and the stuff, and she's just like, well, you DJ'd yesterday, why can't you just play the same thing? Just, you've already got the USB. And I'm like, because it's a different energy, this place. I want to have the right, and also just a right selection readily there. So for me, because I haven't DJ'd my whole life, and there's certain DJs that don't need to organize as much as I feel like I need to, just for my nerves and to make sure that everything is accessible.
You want to feel ready.
I want to feel ready, so I want to have different playlists where I know that, okay, this is specifically my tribal house sector. This is, and you know, on CDJs now you can sort everything by BPM directly on the thing, which is fine, but I still want to have my sectors where I know exactly where certain songs are.
So your USBs are all like folded up?
I folder everything, so I will download either from Beatport or DJ City, or iTunes, wherever it is I download it from. I put it into my iTunes and I do my folders directly on my iTunes, my playlists that I usually do playlists in two ways. Like, one, I will like physically put each song in how I would see the progression of the set throughout the night, and I'll do it like that because then you can switch and sort it by BPM as well afterwards, and you can go between the default and the BPM. So that's a nice way for me to do it. And everything from your iTunes automatically uploads onto your record box, which then reads everything, and you can know what key everything is in, and obviously we'll do the BPMs. When you're dropping everything directly into your iTunes, the BPMs and keys and stuff might not be read on the file. So you would do it over into your record box to read all of that information, and then you can kind of lay out your set like that. But there's some DJs that can do everything by ear, and I mean that would be amazing.
I think those kind of people, some of them are just geniuses, and they're not fair. But then some of them, maybe they've been playing for like 30 years.
No, but it's true.
It's like you just know.
It's true, and you know what? I was speaking, I can't remember which DJ I had on. We've got a podcast called DJ Diaries, and I ask...
I shot the image for it.
Yes. And I asked DJs about their process and stuff, and one DJ said, you have to put in your 10,000 hours. And it is really true, until you sit there and you do the long, hard sets and it becomes second nature to you. You can't really have that DJing process where everything is off ear and second nature or whatever. It takes a really, really long time.
What do you think has been the biggest learning curve for you in that process?
I think the biggest switch for me, if I'm completely honest, is from doing fade in and fade out to understanding what beat matching was. And that is kind of where you're like, oh, okay, now I have a bit more room where I can play, where I can have tunes that I might have one track that I can keep on underlying something else.
Just bring stuff in and out.
And dip things in and out. And that was the biggest game changer for me in my sets, because I didn't have the freedom to do that before. Because I think I started mainly on like pop and hip hop and that sort of stuff because they were really easy things to get a party started. But then when you look at house music or anything that are basically extended remixes, it gives you the space on the intro and the outro that you can actually safely beat match, and you've got a bit of space that you can play with. And I think once I started using those tunes, it allowed me to build my confidence with that and then get a little bit more creative with certain things. But the only way I was able to do that was looking at YouTube videos of everything. So I just literally would Google, how do I do this transition? And I had my controller at home, and I would just practice how to do the transition. And then also I made it a point in my sets, because you get nervous about trying new things, especially if it's in if it's in high pressure situations. So I often didn't want to at the beginning do these types of transitions in my bigger sets, because I'm like, what if I get them wrong? And then I've really fucked up. So in my smaller sets that I would do, which are normally longer sets, and people are, it's either at a bar or people are a bit distracted and you're not on a stage and people aren't staring at you, I would try these out.
You can get away with it a bit more.
Yeah, you can get away with it a bit more. You can style it out a little bit more, that sort of thing. And I would try it there. But, it was a process. It was something I had to learn. It was something I had to, work at. I think that, it's something that takes time, like anything.
How have you gone about finding new places to play and building up a client base that you have now, where people call on you? You don't have to go out and pitch for your services anymore.
Do you know what? It was years of networking, and and also keeping and maintaining really good relationships with people. It's actually funny how everything does a full circle, because for me, when I first started, I was in hospitality PR. So I knew a lot of the venues and I knew a lot of the people that worked in those areas. So then when I moved into DJing, a lot of them were like, "Lara, you DJ?"
Yeah.
And they were very willing to give me a chance and a shot. And it was only through I guess, doing a good job, that you get called back and you can keep going from there. Social media is great as well, I think, of reminding people that, hi, I'm here, I'm doing this. And I think also it is really important to photograph and get videos of yourself playing.
I think a lot of DJs struggle with that part of it.
It's and sometimes you just have to give your phone to the crowd and say, take
For
a video. Yeah, I've done
That's
that.
wild.
No, because otherwise, how are you going to get it?
That's a good point.
You know, and these like real videos of you DJing are the most translatable to bookings. You can have a photo of yourself like this. You can have like professional videos, but they'll just do stylized shots of everything and pop music over it. So having some real actual footage of you DJing,
valuable.
Yeah, it's really valuable, because that's actually what people want to know before they book you.
I guess they want to see the energy of the room. They want to see the crowd enjoying themselves.
I mean, that's the other thing. Depending on the situation, if it's like going to be okay, I DJ as a duo, so if LaLas DJing, I can do a video of the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's also a huge thing to know, you know, how people are feeling, and if you're filling a room and if people are dancing and the energy's right.
How have you found it? Because obviously on a big night, you'll have a whole lineup of DJs.
Yeah.
What is DJ culture like playing alongside other people? Because obviously you've got La with you, but you must meet DJs from all over the world in different scenarios.
Yeah. You can have good luck and you can have bad luck. I mean, okay, so I always feel like there's DJ etiquette. You know, if someone's coming in after you, give them a 6-minute, 7-minute song that they can get their thing in and drop in. You know, don't give them 30 seconds left of your song and they're rifling around and bouncing. Also, sometimes, you know, when you're booked for an hour set and the DJ turns up 45 minutes late, and then it's unfair on you that you've then done, you know,
so do you have to play on?
Yeah, because what are you going to do? The music shuts off.
Oh, wow.
You know, so if they're running late, it's not, and it's also not the venue's fault, it's the DJ's fault. You know, and especially if you're only prepared for a certain amount of time. So that can be a little bit challenging. These things happen though, you know, you can't control every circumstance, but I do think there's an etiquette of, if you're doing back-to-back with someone, you show up a little bit early. You also see what music they're playing. I mean, for me, if I'm going after someone, you need to see what music they're playing.
You don't just want to keep dropping the same tunes.
Well, yeah, or even just to make sure you segue quite nicely, because even though, like, often when you're doing these back-to-back things, and depending on what style of the venue is, they like you to bring your own flavor to your set. You don't have to do what the person was doing before you, especially if the person before you is doing a 6 to 8 p.m. set. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed. And then, you know,
the energy changes.
The energy changes, and I think the point of getting different DJs in is that you bring in that variety. But yeah, you want your segue to kind of not be super jarring or anything like that. I've been really blessed in a lot of these situations where I've known a lot of the DJs that I'm working with, and so it's all love. There is competition in the industry.
That's what I was going to ask you. It must be a bit competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that I've given a lot of other people in the industry jobs that I haven't been able to do and that sort of stuff. So I've actually had quite good karma in this sector. But I do know about, like, DJs kind of try to jar other DJs with the, you know, turning the level depth down or the filter. So if you turn it all the way down and you're trying to do an echo out, nothing will happen. Because the depth will tell you how much of that echo you're allowing in.
Gotcha.
So if you're just assuming everything is cool, I mean, you should check everything anyway, but if you're doing a really quick handover and that's how you're getting out of your first song and they've, like, done this, then there can be that kind of culture there, but I haven't really had that.
You've also, from hosting and DJing, like you mentioned, I think a little bit before, you've done dabbled with the podcast. You have a current podcast as well. How have you found the podcasting world compared to DJing?
Well, I mean, the podcasting world for me consists of me and Lara in a room.
Chatting away.
Just chatting. And do you know what? We've had some really, really quite big celebrities come on, and they've been so open to it and so nice. We had DJ Target come through.
Yeah, I love Target.
And I didn't know him. I just slid in his DM. I was like, hi, we're doing a podcast. Would love to have you on. And he drove there. He drove himself there. He was one of the most humble, open guys. We had Melvin come on. We had, before that, when we were not doing it live, we had, in COVID times, we had Big Nasty, we had Rose McGowan, we had some quite big people. But I think with podcasts, everyone's been really, really cool. And yeah.
What have been some of the most interesting things or things that have stuck out for you in those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, other than Target and Melvin, I've been friends with all of those people before, but it was nice to understand a little bit more background of how they got to certain things. Like when I was speaking to Nasty and he was talking about his CBD company, he started that because his mum had sickle cell trait. And that was what was helping her. Whilst I think most people would think, oh, he just likes weed.
Yeah.
You'd
assume.
Yeah. He's a really, really smart business guy. He's a very, very smart guy. I think when you're speaking to any of these people, and it's not just about specifically what work they're doing at that time, you can kind of find, their personality and a little bit more depth around them. We did Lottie Moss was interesting.
Yeah, she seems like an interesting character.
Yeah, she's really, really smart. Very, very smart woman. We talked to her about body ownership. And
isn't she on, she's modelling as well?
Yeah, she moved over to OnlyFans.
Which is brave.
Yeah, she's very brave. And, I thought a lot of her reasonings behind certain things, she said she felt more safe in her OnlyFans room, that her friend was, creating the content with her rather than being on a shoot with 20 men around, being, in the same state of undress or whatever it was. So it was really interesting to hear that. But I think, with any of these things, it's people are layered, and how we see them through media or even through their own social channels or something, it can only ever touch the surface.
So obviously podcasting comes quite naturally to you because you're a chatty person.
Sorry.
But what do you find challenging about it? Because it can't all be easy to you.
Oh God, none of it's easy to me.
You make it look easy.
No, I mean, me and Lara laughed that we should show the behind the scenes of us literally melting down. Yeah, I mean, the setup was always challenging. You know about obviously setting up. I have done a production and sound engineering diploma, but even so, a lot of that is for recording rooms. So setting up, a lot of it is when you're not in a soundproof room, getting your microphones to sound right.
Yeah.
The different levels of everything. Even when I was in Pirate Studios, and I remember on our first one, for some reason, each microphone in my Logic thing wouldn't come through on its own channel. They all just wanted to come through on the one channel, and it's half an hour in, and we don't have this time forever. So I was like, do you know what? Everyone were just going through the one channel, and I had to spend hours chopping each.
Oh, so you edit as well?
Yeah.
I didn't know you edit it.
Yeah, I edit everything myself, which because I do production as well, so it's very similar. I just do it through Logic Pro. But having to get the levels right, you would know this when you're all on one channel and you have 3 very, very different sounding voices and also 3 different microphones.
Oh, that's hell. That sounds like hell.
And everyone was talking on top of each other, and I was like, oh my gosh. But you get there, and I think it's do the best you can, and if it doesn't do as well as you thought it would do, it's not the end of the world. You can do it again. And you can learn from it. And also, in saying that, it doesn't mean don't put out your imperfect stuff, because you need to do that to grow. Because
That's what I'm in the process of.
Yeah, you need to do that to grow. Even my music that I've put out, you know, I'm about to put out my EP now that I've spent a lot of time working out, but my initial songs that I put out wouldn't be nearly at the level of what I'm doing now, but I had to do it even to get the people to work with me that are working with me now. It's a ladder that you have to go up. No one goes in on their first project, you know, with a #1 hit on the first thing that they touch. No. You know, it doesn't work.
It seems like it when you like some people come out of nowhere.
Yeah, but
and then you look into their story. They've been around for like 5-6 years, plugging away, assisting.
Look at Black Coffee.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. He's had a career.
He produced like 10 albums before he became like the it guy that was popping and everything like that. You know, I don't believe in overnight success, and I do actually think it's a curse if you do on your first, whatever your project is, come out with the thing that people think you've peaked at, because you don't have enough experience behind you for that longevity. Because I would not have wanted my first project all those years ago to necessarily have been that big, because I wouldn't have known what I know now of how to maneuver within the industry. And also, you know, being able to sustain and support it, because you learn through doing things imperfectly.
I wanted to get onto music. How did that come about? Were you a musical person growing up?
Yeah, I did. I learned piano, violin, saxophone. I was always very musical, but it wasn't something I pursued. And I do wish I actually kept those instruments up. That would be, you know, amazing for me. I didn't keep them up, but I knew how to read music. Okay. And that at the very base of it is a huge starting point as well, because at least you can understand, you know.
You've got a foundational knowledge.
And then as I kind of got into production through my manager, Jay, he was like, okay, so you're DJing and everything. There's a lot of male DJ producers out there. There's not a lot of female ones.
There's a lot of female DJs.
But there's not a lot of female DJ producers. True. You know, look at all the Calvin Harrises, the DJ Khaleds, you know, all that side of thing. You know, people get confused because they think their song is DJing, but it's just a normally produced song. They just have a DJ name on top of it. So he was like, is that something you'd be interested in? I was like, I know nothing about it, but yeah.
Try it.
So I went into the studio and kind of got a feel of how things were done, and that's when I went and did my production diploma. And learn about it more on my end. I think a blessing as well being DJ producer, so that's like an artist-led production, is that you can combine so many different talents and sounds and everything. I think one of the most invigorating things for me is getting the right vocal on it, and I'm not limited to just my vocal because I'm not the singer on it.
Find the right person for the track.
Find the right person for the track and get the right energy for that melody is an amazing thing. And I started this actual this EP that I'm doing, I started it over in Ghana.
Oh, wow.
So
I remember you traveling and I was like, oh, why am I not there at the right time?
I mean, hopefully I think I might go back at the end of this year, because I'm working with a lot of artists back and forth from there. But the first track on the EP I started with McGee's from R2B's, and then we left space on it to get a UK artist on there, which originally I thought was going to be a female, and then tried it out a few times, and then actually got AV, who's a sick artist on there, who's a male rapper and singer, and that worked. So it's been nice experimenting and kind of working globally and everything.
Tell us a little bit more about the EP then, if you're allowed.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I keep saying it's coming out in a month, it's coming out in a month, and then I'm like, oh no, I need to do this. So I'm not going to say when it's coming out, but it should be soon. It's a 5-track EP, and I kind of have dabbled in a few different genres, but kept it on quite a commercial centric. So it's like got Afro beats, but commercial Afro beats, you know. So and then I've got a track that's a little bit more house, but it's still within that kind of commercial centric. But I've got some great artists on there. I've got Shingy. I've got
I love her.
Yeah,
She's the best.
She's like, I mean, that's who my last song was with. Shingy's amazing. She's incredible to work with as well. She's one of the most talented artists that I always just say she just needs one take. And I've worked with artists where I sit like comping every single word kind of thing. But Shingy is just flawless, yeah. So she was amazing to work with. On another track, I have Mr. Drew. I've got Kamido on there. And another big artist that I'm not going to say just yet. And, gosh, I've forgotten all of my other tracks. But then they're somewhere. But yeah, I mean, it's a process of getting the right, now with a release, especially an independent release, the visuals around it and, you know, the music video and everything.
What's involved? Because I've never released an EP.
A lot. Listen, I'm doing the release through my management, and I think the distribution I'm going to use is Ditto. I have to double check on that. And I do have publishing. So there is support around it. But, you know, you have to self-fund, you know, music videos, recordings, all of that sort of stuff. But then, you know, you own your tracks.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about ownership now.
It's all about ownership, and it's also like, even when you're signed, it's not, the advance is not a payment, it's to put back.
It's a loan.
It's a loan, you know, and a lot of people end up still in debt on their tracks and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, listen, there's 100 ways to skin this cat. You can do it in so many different ways now. But yeah, for me, I'm just finishing up on the 5 tracks. I think I'm going to do 1 or 2 music videos. I'm not doing music videos for all of them. I'll drop a single, and then I'm going to drop the rest of the EP on a one thing. And yeah, just keep it moving from there, because I think it's only once you release things that you can work on the next thing and keep it going.
You haven't just picked a lane. You're like, I want to do this, I want to do this. Where does that come from your perspective?
God, I have no idea. I'm quite ADD.
I feel like I am too.
Yeah,
maybe.
I like seeing a lot of things. I like experimenting a lot of things, and that sometimes is a challenge as well, because you have to be committed to finish these things in any type of way to get good at them. So, but I think that for me, I've always gone with whatever's working at the time. Sometimes you can't force things, and especially in creative industries, sometimes if music is working really well for me, or DJing or this, that's when I'm gonna focus more of my energy on that. But at the same time, I find if I become too reliant on something, there is a certain desperosity that goes around it that is really bad for like energy for whatever you're doing. So for me, it's always been good to have my mind focused on 2 or 3 different projects at once that I can dip in and out of. And if one doesn't go completely to plan, it's not the end of my life. And I can keep it light and everything. And that's kind of the process that works for me.
Given that you've got a very, unorthodox approach to everything you're doing, you just throw yourself at stuff that you might want to have a go at.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've made some mistakes and learned some really valuable lessons, but could you share some of those that you think have really stood out for you in your journey?
Don't get stuck on things. And I was touching on that before, but sometimes you can really, really want something for you at that time. And it's actually better and the universe will be sending you signals, and the more things go wrong or something, the more you desperately want to make that thing work. you have to be okay with letting things go, you know, and that it's not going to be the end of the world. We were kind of saying before as well, you have to be okay with failing, and you have to be okay with not being the best at something, but you have to use that as ammunition to make you work harder and get better. And, you know, I think a lot of these things is the grace in which you can fail and rebuild and know when it's time to rebuild or move directions or something like that. I think when you have tunnel vision on, you cannot understand that there's a lot of opportunities you're blocking out as well.
Yeah.
So I think I learned that in loads of ways where I really, really wanted certain things to work, and then, you know, probably poured far too many resources in it, even when people were telling me not to do this and that. And when it came that I did get the thing to work, it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go.
Yeah,
and
anyway,
you know, and it would have actually just been okay to be like, all right, let me let this one pass. But yeah, you learn.
For you, what are some of the signs then? When do you, what are the red flags when you're like, actually, maybe this is something I should be moving on from?
I have to talk it through with people. Lara's always a good sounding board for me because we work in such similar circles and capacities and everything like that.
And she knows you well.
She knows me well. But I also make a pros and cons list of what will happen if I don't do this, and what will happen what I think will happen if I do. You know, so if you can, for me, I kind of sometimes need to actually visually see what the potentialities are of something in order to be more aware of the entire situation. You know, so sometimes you're like, oh my God, the world is going to end if this doesn't happen and blah, blah. And then you look at it.
Not true.
And you're like, okay, no, it's actually fine. I can keep moving at this, or, you know, or just like talk yourself through what the process is and that sort of a thing. But, yeah.
I have huge admiration for anybody that can leave their home country and create a whole new life for themselves. In your case, on the other side of the world. What on earth possessed you to do that? And what's been the journey of like setting up in London, which is a huge city and quite a hard place to break and to settle in? What's that been like, and what possessed you to do it in the first place?
Yeah, I've always been quite a good traveler. I've also lived in Brazil, Ecuador, America, and now here. It's always difficult at the beginning. I think to really, really live in a place, 2 years is a settling in period, I will say. I was very, very blessed from the beginning to have Azim, who's, I don't know if you know Azim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's an amazing events organizer and king of networking and socializing. And he got me that job at Nickelodeon. So when I first came over here, he would make sure I would come to all of the dinners every weekend. And I, from the ground, managed to meet a really, really creative, influential, media-focused group of people. But at the same time, still, you have to crack that industry to be in it. Like, it's one thing to be friends with everything. It's another thing. You have to bring something to the table. So, yeah, it was just many years of showing up for people and working hard at what I wanted to do. And, you know, also I'm lucky enough that I have a British passport, so I could stay over here.
Yeah.
And I went back, I still go back home every December, so I've got that balance. But moving country is hard, and I think that, you know, not having family immediately close to you is hard. So it's really important to have a really good, strong friendship group.
Yeah. Is that how you cope?
Yeah.
How did you meet Laura? I've always wondered, because you
I
guys
met her on I think the first week I was in London.
Amazing.
Through Azim, we went to a dinner at Shoreditch House together. But we weren't immediately best friends. We became closer over the years, and it just so happened that we coincidentally lived around the corner from each other, so that helped. But yeah, we also have very similar family backgrounds. Although she's from Germany, I'm from Australia. Our families are Jewish, and I think you kind of often flock together with
Like
people.
shared values.
Yeah. Shared values, shared experiences, and that sort of stuff. And yeah, so I mean, I met her in the first week along with a lot of the people that I'm still friends with today. So I think I was very blessed with that, and that made a huge difference to my experience of, I guess, becoming a native Londoner.
You've been here for how long now?
12 years.
So you're definitely in London. I think if you can make it 5 years in London, you pretty much are part of the furniture.
It's funny because a lot of my friends that moved from Australia either to London or New York. 5 years was the time that they lasted before they went back.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time. The thing is with Australia as well, the lifestyle is very nice and calm and easier over there. And, it's not completely reliant on how much money you have. It's always sunny. Well, not always sunny. In the summertime, at least, there's a lot of outdoor things. I think people find it a lot easier over there than big cities like New York and London, where it really is the biggest grind because you have the most competition in the entire world in whatever you're doing. I think in Sydney, it would be much easier to be a big fish in a small pond.
So why aren't you doing that? Where does your appetite come from to fight in such a competitive arena?
I love London. I love how multicultural it is. I love the energy of the place. Sydney is very, although it's beautiful and the lifestyle's great and I love visiting home, it is very far away from the rest of the world and you do feel it. And especially for me, musically now, it is really important to be in tune with the sounds and energies that are going on globally. And also I've spent my entire 20s in London now, and so I think where you spend your 20s, it really...
It's formative.
It's formative. It shapes who you are, and I think for me it would be starting again if I went back home now.
I was going to ask, so you've travelled all over the world. What are some of your favourite places and experiences that you had?
Some of my favorite places was I lived in Ecuador for a little bit. I was living with an American ambassador out there. I was doing volunteer work out there, and Ecuador intrigued me. And I was teaching and helping to build a school in the mountain areas out there,
Amazing.
which was...
it must have been beautiful.
It was beautiful, but from there we went to Galapagos Islands, and that was a real experience. Obviously it's where Darwin's theory was founded, but I don't think anything prepares you for the nature there. And this was many years ago. I'm not sure how much travel they still do through there, because I know they were having oil spills.
Oh wow.
But so I think there's 7 or 8 different islands that belong to the Galapagos is owned by Ecuador anyway. But because no one's allowed to live on these islands, these animals are not scared of you at all. Yeah. They're all just they've got the blue-footed boobies, which are these birds with these blue feet.
They don't even look real.
But they'll just walk on top of you and stuff. And the reason why they have blue feet is because I can't remember whether it's the male or the female, but one of them circles around, and that it's a mating dance that they do with their feet. And that they will circle around and fly, and the person, well, not the person, the bird that's doing the best, I guess, blue-footed booby dance. Nice. They will fly down and procreate.
Amazing. I mean, I literally can't even imagine what it's like to visit somewhere like that.
It's really incredible, yeah. So there, and then in terms of places that, for just more conventional holidays and parties and everything, I'm always going to be a Mykonos girl.
Fair. Yeah. I've never been. I've still not been.
Well, this summer, let's go.
It's the place everyone goes.
But I haven't been in many years. When I used to go, it would be my early 20s. So it wasn't... It's kind of becoming more of an Ibiza now, but it wasn't that then. It was still great parties popular. And everything, but it had a different energy to it. It wasn't like all the clubs from London were over there. They were all these little unknown places and everything.
So you playing out there this year?
Not in Mykonos, not yet. If anyone wants to book me there, I'm ready.
Do you have any big shows coming up?
Well, we've got a residency now in Berlin, so we will be doing once a month out there with the Amano group.
Is that the hotel group, right?
Yeah, so they've got amazing restaurants that they do these big parties in that the energy's just nothing like it. It's a mixture between Mexican and Israeli parties, and we just got back from one yesterday.
And they've got like people dancing on the tables.
They had fire breathers and the chefs are on the tables and the waitresses are pouring bottles down your throat. It's not like an average restaurant party. So we're going to do those once a month out in Berlin. And then I've got a couple of event things. I think I'm doing a launch of something at the Soak. And other than that, I really need to check my diary.
How do you stay organized? Because
I don't.
There's so much going on.
Oh gosh, I need to buy a diary. Do you know everyone does their diaries in their phone?
Yeah, I do.
I can't do that. I don't know. There's something about it that is adverse to me, so I need to buy.
Physically write it down.
Yeah, with my terrible handwriting.
So the reason why I do it on my phone is
Yeah.
because if I lose my phone, it's all connected.
Oh,
So if I get another phone, I just update it, and then I've got all my calendar dates and all my notes.
I need to bite the bullet and just do that because it makes more sense.
If I had to rely on one piece, like one book, I'd have to sleep with it under my pillow.
I know. I'm gonna work on it. So your answer is I'm not organized, and I'm constantly surprised about what I have on in the day. It will normally be just going through my emails. I'm like, oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forget. Even with my calendar dates, I still forget most things.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like even when I feel like I'm on top of it, that almost gives me anxiety because I think I must be missing something.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get an email from somebody like, oh, why aren't you at...
100%. There's nothing more scary than feeling calm and in control, because in the back of my mind, then I'm like, oh my God, I must be forgetting a million things and just going about my day like I have it all under control. Sometimes.
How do you work through a creative block? Because we all have those moments where maybe we've been on it for, consistently for a long period of time and we're reaching the point of burnout. How do you reset and find a way back to that creative energy that, you usually exude?
Yeah, I don't work through it. I make sure I give myself a break. Even when, I have deadlines on things, there's no point in me doing it if I'm not in the right mind frame. So even if it's recording radio or whatever it is, it's better for me not to do it. And then when I come back and have not thought about it and I've gone and had a bit of me time, and whether that is going and having a spa day or going and doing whatever I have to do to make myself feel better, I think because I do often work in high intensity spurts, so it might be a couple of weeks of, and even if I have to DJ 3 times in a week, the energy that takes out of you, especially if they're nighttime sets, and trying to do things in the daytime as well for work commitments and everything like that, you can feel like you're only getting 2 hours sleep, 2 hours of sleep a night, and your body can't function on that. Your brain can't function on that. You can't keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I've tried it before, and I've done everything at a really mediocre standard. So it's better just for me, if it's not working, if I have to switch off my phone, if people are going to be on my case, and things are time sensitive, and that are often people going to be on your case, but I might just have to go off grid for a day, and then there's no point in even saying, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'll go off grid, get what I need to do done in the time frame that I can do it, and then just send it over, and people are going to be fine because it's done.
I often feel like as well, if you announce it, people will just inundate you. So you kind of just have to switch off.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be like, I'm sorry guys, I'm going to do. There's no point. Also, people don't want to hear explanations about things or whatever. It's better just to come back with a product that's done when you've done it, rather than be like, give me 3 days to do this. They don't care.
Get it done.
Yeah, get it done. And if it's going to take you 3 days, they don't even want the explanation for the 3 days. They just want to be centered in the 3 days. Do you know what I mean?
Fair.
That's how I feel anyway.
I think also when they get it, if it's good enough, they don't care.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no matter what you do, and this is something that I'm learning recently, like, even if you feel like you fucked up a business transaction, a relationship, or something like that, once your product or end result of whatever you're doing is good enough, no one cares.
Yeah, make it undeniable.
Yeah, exactly. So if you feel like, you know, you're losing ground, or that people might be upset at you for certain situations or whatever, rather than focusing your energy on that, it's like, okay, what can I do to make them need to work with me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I think about that quite a lot, actually.
Yeah. Because listen, when you work with a million people, you're always going to have certain situations where certain people might not be happy with you. You can't do everything faultlessly all the time, you know, and a lot of things might be out of your control sometimes. So you're always going to have that. And if you are an anxious person, and a lot of creative people are, you might be mulling these things over. I speak about this a lot with a lot of artists that I work with. They're like, no, I don't want to go in the studio with these people because this happened.
Politics.
It doesn't matter, because if whatever you're working on is good enough, everyone's going to come and work with you. Whether or not a year ago you wrote a rude email or something, you know?
People get over it.
Yeah, they do.
What do you wish you knew when you started out that you know now?
I think in general that whatever you want really is attainable, and the only limits to things is what you put on yourself. You know, I think hard work and dedication and commitment, consistency, you can get anywhere you want in your life, but you have to be able to visualize it and visualize the path of how you get there.
Amazing. I just want people to know how they can find and keep up with you. So share your socials with the peoples.
It's at DJ Lara Fraser on everything except for Facebook. I think it's Lara Fraser Official.
And your podcast.
Podcast, DJ Diaries, and Spotify and everything, DJ Lara Fraser.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
I appreciate you very much. You're amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching. That is another episode of Devoted Creators Podcast. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the section below and I'll try and answer them, or DM me or whatever. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.